afternoon. Thank you so much for staying with 95.1 Nigeria for your passionate, trustworthy conversational radio. Hope your Wednesday is going on great. You're checking all the right boxes. The weather isn't too harsh and all of that. You know, for some days now, I haven't been moisturizing, and I came out looking at you. I said, man, if Itodo sees this one, he'll say I've been attacking men. And look at me looking like the White Walker.
Oh my.
But it's okay.
The weather today was really hot. It's been really hot all day.
I know.
There was a power outage for a few hours. And I kept asking questions, whoever I offended, what's going on. It came back eventually, but the hours that the power was it was hectic. And I just imagined how people who haven't had power for days,
it's been erratic
managing and sleeping
for
at
some
night.
days. It's been crazy for some days, I assure you. But let's just hope things continue to improve. We can only hope and continue to hope for the very best. Well, welcome to the show. And it's time for Hard Facts with yours truly, Kimberly Wachko. Call me Kim the Oracle, the digital oracle, OT of the fellow, Ochanya One, Madam Speaker, and I'll say yes to them. All the Dickin is right by my side.
Yes, my name is Itodo. I'm the Agaba One. Welcome to the show today. We have so much, as always, to talk about on the Roundtable, various conversations right here on Hard Facts. Today at 6 o'clock, we'll get your eyewitness report and your situation update. At 7, we'll hand over to the Football Frenzy team. So there's so much for you to be a part of. We're streaming live right now on YouTube and Facebook at Nigeria Info Abuja. So you can go on there, subscribe, and be a part of the conversation.
Yep, and our guest is already in the studio, comfortably seated. I was having a chat just a few seconds before we came on, like Dr. Majid. I don't know what you're going to tell the people, but good luck with the show today. We've got Dr. Majid Dahiru, researcher, columnist, and the tech team lead of Luxterra Leadership Foundation with us for the Wednesday special roundtable. Dr. Majid, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Delighted to have you join us.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And welcome back too from your
The break.
Your break.
Yes.
Well-deserved break.
Absolutely. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Now, the vice president is saying saboteurs are working against us. And the Senate president said people who are protesting in parts of the country are paid to do so. And everyone is just trying to, explain away what it is going on at the moment. Saboteurs paid to protest, or they are really feeling the pulse of the people at this point in time. Who is going to... I mean, at this point, it just feels almost like, all right, it's not the reality of things. It's just some people paying people to stir up the space and make us look bad. What do you say to the vice president in this instance, Dr. Majid?
So, who are these saboteurs? And I think maybe you might need to read part of his statement.
Let's get.
So what did he actually say about the saboteurs and how that has affected the cost of milk?
Is that the one from the vice president?
This is from the federal government blaming opposition.
Okay, I'll take the vice president. Go ahead.
Okay. So the federal government has blamed opposition elements for the food crisis currently ravaging the country. This came as the government disclosed it had uncovered fresh two smuggling routes being used to take food items out of the country. The federal government, however, described the current economic challenges as the handiwork of forces that are hell-bent on plunging Nigeria into a state of anarchy. It blamed those who failed to clinch power in the last election for remaining in political mood and are now working against the country's interest. Speaking on Tuesday during the inaugural Public Wealth Management Conference organized by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, the president, represented by the vice president, said forces are hell-bent on plunging this country into a state of anarchy. Those who could not get into power through the ballot box, instead of them to wait till 2027, they are so desperate. If this country can fall apart as far as they are concerned, so be it. We are going to resist them. Now, since assuming office 9 months ago, the Tinubu administration has said it had removed long-standing subsidies on petrol to save the government monies for infrastructural expansion. So, the blame game here and there as to who is responsible for what is going on.
Is that the statement from
the vice president?
The vice president.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And he spoke at the Public Wealth Management Conference yesterday, pointing fingers at smugglers, politicians as brain behind the attempt to pull the nation backward. So they are the ones responsible for the fluctuation of the naira against the dollar, the high price of foods in the market, petrol.
Sometimes you have to let out this steam by laughing a little bit at the tragicomic that is unfolding in today's Nigeria. The statement by the vice president is illogical, if not even absurd. I say this because, number one, Nigeria is a country today that we cannot even say is having an opposition, thanks to the political brinkmanship of both the president and the vice president. They've been able to largely lure the opposition to bed, and they have been given a kiss of death. And so we don't have an opposition. If you have an opposition, the National Assembly won't be as docile as it is. The political parties will not be keeping quiet in the midst of the happenings. Of course, if you recall, Kim, I complained severally about how not to be an opposition early in the administration, to say, look, something is amiss, and that the opposition has actually lost the momentum and have betrayed even those who sacrificed to get them to the various positions they've gotten to, both in the National Assembly and at the state level. I have had this complaint. So right now we don't have an opposition. So I'm wondering, what opposition is the vice president talking about? Secondly, he talked about saboteurs. You are the vice president of the country. In fact, he was representing the president at that event. And if you are talking about saboteurs as being responsible for the hardship in the country, you begin to wonder, saboteurs, who are these saboteurs? I know he made reference to the fact that they saw, or was it that they intercepted some trucks carrying
grains to Niger Republic.
Okay, now the question is this. Since when did export of food become a crime in Nigeria? Food crops. Are we not supposed to pursue an export competitive economy? So since when did it become a crime for people to grow crops for the purpose of export? Is it no longer something that we actually need to pursue to actually earn foreign exchange? Right? You see, all of this narrative that they're turning out is centered on one thing: to deflect attention from the real issues, which is failure of leadership, and failure of leadership. The most acute failure of leadership in the history of Nigeria, the most acute, are seen in the consequences of that failure of leadership. That in 8 months, Nigeria has degenerated so fast in every industries of development that we don't even seem to have light at the end of the tunnel. Number one, there's no food scarcity in Nigeria. So the trucking of maize or millet or sorghum across the border to other countries is not the reason why a bag of rice in Abuja is 85,000 naira.
Wow.
It's not the reason why a carton of Indomie is said to be 11,000 naira now. It's not the reason why the price of gas is going up.
11,000 or 17, 18,000. The big size.
Noodles.
Sorry.
Noodles, yeah, 17, 18.
It's 17 now?
Yeah.
You mean it's no longer 11?
No.
Really? Oh my God. It's when it got to 11,000, I made some calls to some people to say, for the first time, I had to ask them. I was empathic. I said, how are you coping? Because I know that these are families that have children that feed so much. I had to make that call to say, please, how are you coping in this hard time? I'm sure the person will wonder, how are you coping? You that is calling me, how are you coping? But I had to call. I felt that I didn't know that Indomie would get to 11,000 in my lifetime. So when it got to 11,000, I had to put, I didn't know it's now 17. Now, I don't know how that is affecting the price of basic food items across the country. Just one convoy of trucks, 45 trucks, is the reason why Nigeria is collapsing. There's no food scarcity in Nigeria. Absolutely not. And the government has introduced this narrative.
Well, would we say there is none? Perhaps not scarcity.
Did you go to the market to buy anything and you didn't see it?
Well, it's there, but it might not be in the supply that we want because of...
Excuse me. Supply? You want to buy 100 bags of rice today? Go to South stores, is there? The problem is, can you afford to buy it? The scarcity will have the scarcity of money. A complete reduction, depreciation, and diminishing of purchasing power of the Nigerian people because of galloping, unprecedented levels of inflation in Nigeria, where the price of goods change almost per hour now. That is the problem. There's no food scarcity anywhere. You have food in abundance in Nigeria. Nigerians are not queuing to buy food. So based on that, then the marketers are now hiking the price because of excess demand. That's not the problem. Have you gone to the market to buy Indomie and you didn't see carton of Indomie to buy? Have you gone to the shops to buy milk and you didn't see milk to buy? Can you buy it? Even as you are looking at it, as you are staring at the carton of milk, can you buy it? That is the problem. In a country that of 30,000 naira per month minimum wage, how many people can afford to buy basic food items? That is the problem. Government introduced this narrative of scarcity to deflect from the matter, started blaming saboteurs. That level of dishonesty is disheartening, to say the least. There's no scarcity of food. Food is everywhere.
Well, some people are bringing the argument from this perspective, given the fact that we've been grappling with insecurity and a lot of the farming communities have been decimated.
That is a different matter. And I'm saying, that notwithstanding, we don't have a problem of food scarcity. Okay. We've not had a problem of food scarcity in Nigeria. No. More than 80% of Nigerians are farmers.
In one way or the other?
Yes. Agriculture dominates our GDP in terms of distributive activities.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? Agriculture is next to services sector. Is that large? It's larger than oil and gas. We don't have a problem of food availability. The problem is accessibility. We don't have the money to access it. Affordability. Yeah. That is the food insecurity we are witnessing. We can't afford food. It's there. Yams are available. I drive past all the shops in Abuja, all the roadside markets. Yams are there. I don't see people queue up to buy. They can't afford it.
All right.
It's as simple as that.
So perhaps not in tune with the reality of things.
Now he now went ahead, and this is the most frustrating part because it seems like they have taken it to a hole and they're still digging. He mentioned their bold step at removing petrol subsidy to free up money to do infrastructure. Whereas the root cause of the entire problem you are seeing today in our way of inflation is subsidy removal and the floating of the exchange rate. These two combined. Any other thing anybody tells you is just beside the point. These are the two reasons. You're having food insecurity arising from unaffordability, not unavailability. Food is available.
Okay.
Yes. Nobody's hoarding food, though. No. Those people are going to their warehouses. Storage is part of the agricultural food chain. That is when you buy, you store. Lack of adequate storage facilities, particularly for perishables, is one of the reasons why food gets waste and farmers don't actually make enough money they're supposed to make because to prevent wastages, they sell at a very low rate, particularly for perishable agri-produce. So storage is one thing that we're even lacking. So people are only able to store grains that can actually stay without any sophisticated storage facility. You can put them in the warehouse and they stay there. Because you buy, you keep, and you sell in your retail shops or your wholesale outlets. As people demand, you go to warehouse to evacuate. Nobody is hoarding food.
Now, the question with even this narrative that the government is putting out and giving directive to the DSS, to the National Security Advisor to go after people hoarding is to say, I know that they are privy to certain intel and information, perhaps that they will use to their advantage. But then you also look at it from the perspective where you're coming from, Dr. Majid, as to saying you get in surplus, you store till when it's out of season, and then you redistribute. But is it possible that we are also having some group of Nigerians who are deciding to ride on the wave of this and in the near future make it a bit more difficult? Perhaps they have that intel.
No, they don't. The government is unserious. I see they are playing with a ticking time bomb. And I'm looking at them and I'm just chuckling. You see, I've gone past the level where I'm even pained by the situation anymore because I'm actually feeling the pain for them. It's so sad that a political leadership can be this insensitive to the plight of Nigerians. This is an age-long business practice. People buy crops when it is available in excess during harvest, store them, and begin to sell accordingly because as the thing goes out of harvest, this particular food item become a bit scarcer, and so the price will rise with this certain threshold. Yeah. Not the level we are facing today. What we are saying is it the hoarding of milk, for example, that's making the price of tin of milk to go up in the market? Is it the hoarding of Indomie? Is it the hoarding of all the food items that are not even direct or raw food crops that's also making the price of all those other ones to go up? You expect people to now go to farm and pay higher amount of money for energy input, diesel and petrol. For tractors in the market, in the farm, you use diesel. To power your generators, to your irrigation facilities, use either diesel or petrol. To transport these things to the market, use petrol or diesel. You expect them to sell food crops at the same price it was 1 year ago before you remove subsidy. Did I not talk about the ravages of subsidy removal are writing for energy security. Now, that energy security, no, you can't have any form of economic security, either in food, healthcare, or any other value chain in the economy. That the foundation of an economy is energy security, that is affordability of energy. So if you fix that aspect of your economy, it will allow people to produce and sell at affordable rates that will not hurt the economy. Did you not make this case elaborately before, during and after the election, when people were talking about subsidy removal? So I was surprised that all of the things we predicted, they are all coming to pass, even in more ways than we actually thought.
All right. So
subsidy removal, and unfortunately, the vice president doubled down on it. You see, it is so sad that people are still thumping their chest over we took a bold decision to move subsidy to free up money for infrastructure. Let me now shock you.
But these advices have been coming from the IMF and the likes of it to say you cannot continue to subsidize.
How come IMF has never told France to remove subsidy on electricity? How come IMF didn't tell UK or dissuade the European Union as a whole from imposing an energy price cap when the cost of energy rose and kind of ignited what they also call cost of living crisis in the UK?
All right, we'll take this up after this very quick commercial break. Stay with us.
It's okay. That is okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. Let me explain. It's okay. She. Off your mic.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info. Your mic is always on. Let's talk.
Audio Jungle.
Hello, my name is Kimberly. I'm the host of Hard Facts, and I bring you the biggest stories driving conversation every weekday here on 95.1 Nigeria Info Hard Fact Show. I love to get your opinion and conjectures, but the facts you cannot dispute here on Hard Facts. Join me and let's talk.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.
Price cap, where the government is offsetting the additional cost of energy on the prevailing market prices through what you can call subsidy. Why is IMF not telling them that? How about China, where energy is also subsidized for both industrial and home uses? Why is IMF not telling them to stop subsidizing? Why is IMF not telling Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other oil producing countries to stop subsidizing energy for their citizens? Why are they telling only Nigeria? Because Nigeria is an experiment. And we are at fault, not the fault of IMF. Let me now tell you where the experiment has even gone wrong. You might think that this is only affecting you and the ordinary people because of the high cost of production that has induced a cost-push inflation in Nigeria of a kind we've not seen before. Let me now surprise you. You see, while the vice president was speaking about subsidy removal and claiming that you give them more money to do infrastructure, sorry, Mr. Vice President, you can't do more infrastructure with the money claim to have saved. You know why? That money has diminished in value as well because of the same factors that has given rise to inflation for the ordinary people in Nigeria today. What 1 trillion could procure as at May 28, 2023, it can't procure it as at May 29, 2023, when subsidy was pronounced gone by your principal. So if, for example, the national budget is based on what dollar exchange rate? 750. What does that tell you? If dollar is exchanging almost at 2,000 today, it does not tell you that the budget presented by Shetima and his Oga is dead on arrival. So how has this policy benefited even you in government? I'm sure while they are still talking, they have not paused to understand that it will cost them much more to procure, even at realistic rates.
Yeah.
Under the prevailing circumstance, because exchange rate is now almost 2,000 naira. Your benchmark, the benchmark of your national budget was 750, right? And it is almost 2,000 naira now. So what kind of budget are you going to implement? It means you need more of this, your thoroughly devalued naira, to do the implementation of that budget. Yeah. Meaning, at the end of the day, you saved nothing. In fact, you are in a loss. You are in deficit as we speak already because of the exchange rate differentials, because you floated the naira. You see, the moment you pronounce floating of the naira, it is natural. People know that you don't have enough reserves to manage floating. So people quickly went and started converting their money.
And I recall we had that conversation, Dr. Majid. I remember
and vividly. I told you that no country in any part of the developed hemisphere floats in national currency. You can devalue your currency from time to time to ease pressure on your foreign reserve. Not a problem. But you must not announce a float. The day they announced it,
you actually said it. People
I said to go to float towards Zimbabwe. That's where we are today. That's where we are today, because you created that panic, you created that flurry of activity around the acquisition of dollars. If you have 10 billion in your account today, and you hear that dollar is appreciated against the naira by 100 basis points every day, won't you go and convert it to dollar? Would that push more pressure on the naira and reduce its value? So who's at fault? The government, your policy. Then subsidy on petrol. We argued that Nigeria's most utilized energy product is petrol because of inadequate electricity, lack of well-planned public transportation system. People rely on petrol for their cars, for their logistics, for their small and medium enterprises. Yeah. And so we remove subsidy on such a product. It will affect the overall cost of production, and the prices of goods and services will rise. So you're going to have a cost-push inflation of a kind never seen before in this country, because there's no government since the 70s that have yanked off subsidy on petrol completely. They reduce it from time to time, but they still leave it in place because they know the implication. Even Buhari, despite all his flaws, knew better than to remove subsidy completely, because he tried it initially and it backfired. And so he quickly restored it and was just managing it gradually. A government came and on the first day, it yanked it off completely. And we are now suffering from the effect of that. And the vice president, instead of by now thinking of how to restore subsidy back to the levels you met it, is talking about hoarders, talking about opposition, and talking about saboteurs. It's an insult on the collective sensibility of Nigerians for the vice president to actually make such a statement. And I think enough of this provocation. If you don't have a solution, keep your mouth shut. It's better than to open it and say things that would infuriate people the more, because we know that this is not reality.
Okay, but
on May 20, let me tell you what the president should have done, which is third parties all over the world. Whenever a new government is elected, it is not true that people have to suffer to enjoy it. It is not true. I don't know where we got that idea from. No. Once a new government is elected, the first thing they do is to bring succor to the people immediately through subsidies, increase in welfare, increase salaries. Standard practice, particularly in a democracy. So in addition to sustaining petrol price at the levels the government met it on May 29th, they should have known that the rising cost of diesel, as at that time, was already affecting the price of petrol. Because people that are selling petrol need diesel to power their stations. And the cost of diesel was already affecting the price of petrol. So what any government should have done then was, as at the time we were deregulating the price of diesel and completely free from government control, nobody envisaged that the price will continuously rise to a point it will cost 1,300 naira mark. Nobody knew. And so meaning that the deregulation of diesel was also another flawed policy that is now biting us hard. A sensible government would have imposed subsidy on diesel immediately to foster what you are saying today. Impose subsidy on diesel. And people keep asking, where will they get money to impose subsidy? Where are they getting money to fly presidential jets? Where are they getting money to buy SUVs for themselves? Where are they getting money to hire and pay for 8 ministers? Where are they getting money for the profligacy you see them engaged in as we speak? Where are they getting money for all of that? Subsidy on energy is the most important investment any government can do for the economic productivity of their country or nations. It's a fundamental requirement because it is an integral part of national security. The protests we are seeing all over the country is not organized by the political party. The PDP does not have the capacity to organize protests. If Obedient have told you we are not protesting, now after all, we didn't vote for this government. So those who have voted for us keep protesting. So who's now organizing the protest? Nigerians, the hunger in the land has broken the shackles of partisanship, tribalism, and ethnicity, as well as religious bigotry.
It's not easy to break that in Nigeria.
So the hunger has united people now. And so even from the president's home region, we are seeing protests. And the same song, the theme song for the national protest is Ebin Power in the president's own native language. What does that tell you? That even at home, he doesn't have the kind of support ordinarily we expect him to have in a thoroughly divided entity like Nigeria. No. Hunger has made people wiser. So in his strongest base, in his home region, and in the north, where he got some substantial support to make him president, these are the places that are convulsing as we speak.
But Dr. Majid, don't you also see the possibility of politicians being the puppet master, orchestrating everything together, given the fact that we have in the wings NLC warming up for the 27th and the 28th to protest in line with the hardship that Nigerians are going through?
NLC will come late to the protest. NLC has lost
2 weeks heads
NLC
up.
has lost the fire in his balls. So when you talk about NLC sometimes, let's even leave NLC out of this conversation because the Nigerian people themselves are not waiting for NLC to lead them in protest. They're already protesting. Talking about politicians, again, let me take you back to what I said earlier. The president, I'm give it to him. He's a grandmaster of establishment politics in Nigeria. He has been able to buy up the opposition. Do you see them speaking in the National Assembly against any of these policies? Have you had any political party, apart from sometimes Atiku make certain statements occasionally? Have you had?
Well, I wanted to go there.
Have you heard any PDP MP in the parliament, any senator or House of Rep member who has stood up to actively oppose? You know, when I was raising this issue back in the day, that there's a build-up to this economic problem you're facing today, and that both members of the Labour Party and the PDP are not actually talking. Yeah, as if they are just there and they have found anything that the president is doing. I raise this concern. So which political party now are they talking about that's organizing protest? In your own strong base, not in the southeast though, where the Labour Party dominated, or the south-south, but in the southwest. Was it the PDP or the Labour Party that organized protesters where the president was driving through Isaleko to the Central Mosque in Lagos in December, and this Ebin Power cry was raised among the natives of Lagos? Is it the Labour Party that organized it, or is it PDP that organized it? What I'm taking my time to say is the media should not, please, so that you can redirect the government towards the real issues. Such statement, such attempt to deflect from the matter is so mundane that we don't even need to give it too much of a thought. No political party in Nigeria is engineering anything because they're all in it. Is the PDP doing better than the APC at the state level? So on what basis, on what moral ground will anybody listen to PDP to get them to engineer them to protest? So these are the issues. Do you know why the opposition was able to raise the banner of protest in 2012 against subsidy removal and independent hardship? You know why? There's an article circulating today that was written by this same Bola Tinubu, that's our president, where he prophesied about everything happening today in that article. So based on that, okay, the opposition then, led by him, we are firmly opposed to subsidy removal with all of the good reasons. People naturally sway to their side and were able to influence people to protest. But the PDP subscribed to subsidy removal, just like the Labour Party as well. So they don't even have any alternative. The way he had an alternative then that he proffered and said, look, build refineries, fight corruption, and these things will be managed. But in the meantime, don't remove subsidy to create hardship, it will create poverty and social unrest.
He didn't take his own advice.
That is the point. So today, no, we don't have any leading, not even Atiku. Atiku is just saying, you didn't do it right. Atiku has not recanted on his own stand on subsidy removal or floating of the naira. As a matter of fact, the first politician to use that term, floating of the naira, was Atiku Abubakar in 2019. As a matter of fact, to say, this idea you are playing with is dangerous. No country floats a currency. You can't subject your national currency to the dictates of market forces. It's insane. Don't do that.
Given the fact that you're not even producing so much.
It's insane. They can't even try that. Nobody should push you to do that. That America does not float its currency. Neither does China. Neither does the UK. If you are to float currencies and allow market forces to dictate, the British pound will not be as valuable as it is. Because what does Britain actually export compared to India or China? And the Chinese currency would have been the second most valuable in the world because the second, if not the largest exporter in the world today. But it is a, devalued currency strategically because of export.
Yeah.
So these things nobody does these things you guys are trying to practicalize here. But you know why they did it? You see, neoliberal economic practices is easy for very lazy leaders to adopt. You see, it requires them to do too much of work. It's an experiment. You see, the IMF is doing an experiment. Later, they will write in their report that, it didn't work. Let us try something else. It's not about you. It's about...
Is there a need then for... We have an economic team.
Yes.
Is there a need to just rejig things up and, I don't know, then new crop of people we can bring in with new ideas to brainstorm on this?
Has it not occurred to you that this government has not put in place any serious effort to revamp our refineries, to ensure for us adequate refining, production of fossil fuel energy derivatives that powers our economy?
We have Dangote in the works. We have the Port Harcourt refinery in the work. Yeah.
For how long have they been in the works? It took only 3 years for Port Harcourt for refinery to be built in the 70s. Just 3 years. It was awarded in 1977. By 1980, they've commissioned it.
Wow.
That was when government was serious. Obasanjo, as head of state, constructed about 17 depots across this country and about 25 flow stations in just 3 years as a military head of state. He bequeathed to us a massive oil and gas infrastructure that connected every part of the country to the oil and gas resources in the Niger Delta. How many years did it take him? Now, between 1999 and today, no refinery has been revamped. No new one has been constructed. Now, they told us that the Dangote government have supported him, all sorts of support. Dangote has not refined one drop of petrol for as long as I can remember that they've been talking about. We've completed even on the light and shot the fire. Does it not occur to you that there's a need for a thinking? How come government is not thinking? How come we're not in that frenzied move towards fixing our refineries and building new ones? So that you can have sustainable source of energy. As an oil producing country, Nigeria is the only OPEC country that does not have refineries at home, that is functioning. Nigeria is the only country. Nigeria is the only country where price of petrol is high among OPEC countries. Only Nigeria. Yes. Because other countries are able to subsidize because it is their own product. Only Nigeria. So how come we don't have that effort in
Not
place?
even Angola that is grappling
Angola
with
is subsidizing petrol and diesel and gas, as we speak. They only cut it. That is, okay, we reduced it, but it is still in place. And you are seeing the crisis you are seeing in Angola. They didn't remove it like you did in Nigeria. And they have refineries at home that are able to refine. But it's okay, let us reduce. Reduce. Only reduction. Not that we removed it. I heard the problem they're having. Petrol is subsidized in Saudi, in Iran, and almost any other oil producing country, particularly OPEC member countries that you know. The same thing with Russia. Energy must be subsidized because it has an affordability component that makes subsidy imperative. The people that are subsidizing energy, they know what they are doing. And if you look at the countries that are able to subsidize successfully, there are common features among them. Their governments are very high on integrity, their political leadership. High on integrity and low on corruption. And they are very business-oriented. They own thriving, state-owned enterprises that boost their forex reserves. When you talk about changing the thinking among the economic think tank in government, and even in academia, I will also tell you, it's any country that insists that it doesn't do business with how the problem Nigeria is having today. What is the problem of the forex after floating? Inadequacy of supply, right? Of forex. Why is that? The only source of revenue for Nigeria, and that is important that treat this issue. The only source of revenue for Nigeria, forex revenue, is crude oil sales now. Crude oil export, right? Another source. Okay, the next one is LNG. Our dividends from LNG. Our investment in LNG. 49% makes us the owners of LNG in partnership with other multinational oil companies. So annually they give us the dividends in dollars, right? That's another source of revenue. Then we have some other levies and taxes we collect in dollars, particularly at the ports and all that. So but all of this is very meager because one, we don't even have enough oil production to boost this. And even the production of oil is not operated by the Nigerian state. So here that you produce 1 million barrels of oil, probably will be not to Nigeria, there will not be more than 40 or 50%. Because you're not the one actually operating the oil wells. It is your JV partners. Thank you. Now, in other countries, they have been able to grow the capacity of their own NNPCs, like Saudi Aramco, Petronas of Brazil, Petronas of Malaysia, Sino Oil of China and Co., to be the operators of their own oil well and oil resources. So you hear that Saudi Aramco rakes in or is able to put out 12 million barrels of oil a day. Just so that 100% of that money comes to the Saudi states.
I'm trying to confirm if I put this out about Shell pulling out.
Onshore, the onshore facilities,
okay.
Yes. So when you hear that any of these countries pump certain amounts of barrels of crude oil, if the money is whole, it is theirs. Because they don't operate it, they don't have capacity to operate it. Nigeria don't know to develop capacity, and this government does not seem to even work in that direction, to develop capacity, to even maximize production of your own oil mineral resources. Now, China, India, the United States of America, Germany, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, and any of these developed countries that are prosperous and secured with stable currencies have thriving state-owned enterprises or state-backed enterprises that are export competitive to bring in revenues. That is, you have other entities offering services and goods to the larger world that are able to draw in revenues. For example, let me use France as an example. France has a company called EDF, Simple Electricity of France. It's a French government-owned company, 100%, that provides electricity in France, most part of Europe, South America, and parts of Africa. It has revenues in billions of dollars and euros annually from its operations across the world. So it goes into swell the coffers of the French government. The same thing with Saudi Arabia and Saudi Aramco. Then China, for example, any company you see in Nigeria, anywhere in the world that is Chinese, is owned by the government of China. So what has been the result of this investment, state-owned investment? China today is having a dollar reserve of $3.2 trillion. What is the dollar reserve in Nigeria? Which is making you unable to support your currency. It's less than $30 billion. And they're even saying it is even in red if you move over the encumbrances and obligations. But China is having 3.2 trillion. You know why? I made an example last week. By the end of September 2023, right? Chinese exports into Nigeria totaled 7.5 trillion naira. But Nigerian exports into China was less than 800 billion naira. You see the disparity? And this is why China is having $3.2 trillion in its reserve, and you're having less than $30 billion in your reserve, because the Chinese state has invested so much in so many companies and entities, converting their potentials into export competitive goods and services. And so they are drawing the dollars, while your own source remains export of crude oil in its crudest form. And nobody is thinking of changing this narrative to say, a country cannot stay and it has no investment in any viable export competitive entity. And you are expecting to have a stable currency. How can you have it in this modern world? How? And there's no thinking along this line. No thinking at all. I know the saddest part, no political party is offering this alternative.
Dr. Majid, I was going to bring us back to what opposition can do differently, because, I mean, when the president was sworn in, he made a statement about working together along party lines, regardless of what party you voted for, you supported, and he hoped that he'll be able to work with Labour Party, PDP, and the other oppositions put together. So how can they be more effective as opposition to ensure that whatever Nigeria is going through right now is sorted out in good time? Because the PDP governors have likened what Nigeria is going through as to what happened in Venezuela, even though the government insists that we're on a path to redemption, and it doesn't look like redemption for a long time coming. How can we move in the right direction? Maybe make the right decisions in the coming days, because if things were to go the way they're going right now for a longer period, we know how it could go south easily for Nigerians.
Thank you very much. Nigeria is a democracy. And when you have a system that is not working for it, ordinarily you should expect alternatives from other players in the system, so that people can now say, okay, we've tried the policies, the neoliberal tendencies of these other parties. Can we now try something else that is clearly an alternative? So, for example, I was at the PDP by now, even though they also supported subsidy removal, supported the floating of the naira, and supported some of these neoliberal tendencies that led us down the road to perfidy now, I would expect that the responsible party would sit down and say, which we have been in error. Yes, we have been in error. So we have realized that there's a need to change the course. And so as a political party, we now realize that contrary to the entrenched narrative, that government has no business in business, that actually government has business in business, and indeed, we are ready to now do business as a government. Either business of facilitation of businesses, regulation, monitoring, and actual investment to boost our source of revenue through externally generated revenue through overseas trade and investment. We are focused on this. We no longer want to travel the road to China on the road that actually leads to Washington. No. That is the first. It's like a renunciation of what you believed before. It's like converting from one religion to the other. Becoming born again. Secondly, I would expect the people to also identify corruption. Institutional corruption, cultural corruption as one of the bane of our development. And now say, look, we have come to a point where we have realized that to move Nigeria forward is to now imbibe what Father George Husani described as integrity of leadership. That is, a political leadership that will pay absolute fidelity to constitutionalism, rule of law, and get committed to delivering the good in line with all our rules and regulations. We want to have this as a commitment. They demonstrate this now in the states controlled by the PDP. You don't even criticize the APC anymore. No. Go back to Bauchi State, where Bala Mohammed is. Come back to Oyo State, where Makinde is. All the PDP constituencies will sit and say, now, we want to have absolutely autonomous local governments as enshrined in the Constitution. And when the monthly allocation comes into the JAC account of the state, within 24 hours, after calculating the tax deductions and additions, where the state is actually supposed to add to the allocation of local government because they collect taxes of our local government. Yeah. So meaning that the allocation will increase from what came from the federal government. We want to see PDP state governments now clicking the button and each local government gets its money as duly allocated from the national purse. I want to see them reform their SIEC in their state to make sure that they democratize local government councils where only people who won elections are declared as winners. PDP should start this as an opposition, as an alternative. Yes. We want to see them give full autonomy to the legislative arm of the government in the state and the judicial arm in a manner that people would not say, if you go to your state, if you go to the other PDP states, everything is working fine. Judiciary is independent and working fine. If I have any case, short before a few weeks or it's been dispensed with, we want to see that working in their state because we're a federation. So if you want to oppose by example, not by rhetoric. No, we want to see what you're doing differently. And this should be effected across all the strata of governance in line with what I call the fidelity to constitutionalism. That is, operate this constitution as was intended, which we've not done since 1999 as a matter of fact. By the political class, they've not done it. The PDP should start from there. But I will see progress, prosperity. But I will see states like Oyo State establishing state-owned enterprises with the monthly allocation it's getting. I will see them getting a lot of revenues. You know that Oyo is declaring profit every year because of all the many businesses they invested in, and they're able to now provide social amenities, good education, good housing, social housing, good healthcare management facilities for their citizens. People will gravitate gradually towards this ideal model of governance. So it is a difficult task that they must do. It goes beyond those issued press statements. That's not where we are. And so we're able to do this at halftime, 3 years.
But what if the people have moved past all of that?
No. The people have not moved past good governance.
Moved, well, true that.
So they must, look, when you do it, you see, it didn't take Zulum to do more to exact Nigerians. It didn't take him too much. I meant
the people moving past this opposition
Zulum in the last 4 years. It didn't take him to do too much to excite people to say, see Zulum. It's not even taking Lesotho of Abia to do too much. To get people excited and say, for the first time, we're seeing who been done in Aba and then it is being cleared. As basic as this. Nigerians are very easy to please. I'm saying, for PDP, we're in a position that wants to actually challenge.
They need to
give us an alternative political ideology that moves Nigeria from the extreme right to the left.
Dr. Majid, because of time, let's take some comment to open up the phone line just before we go on the break. Call us up on 0700 951 0000 or 0809 5974869, or you can call via WhatsApp on 0809 9930137. Let's run through the comments.
Olayode Joshua on YouTube says, blame it on the people. No form of subsidy can work in Nigeria as the people will lack the accountability to make it work. And Mahmoud Mohammed says the president should listen to Nigerians cry and crash the price of fuel. By doing that, every price will come down naturally. Please bring back subsidy. And Awuru Joshua says this kind of suffering our leaders are subjecting its citizens to is unwarranted and quite provocative. To worsen the whole situation, our religious leaders are saying our problems are spiritual. How? And Simon Matthew says, when you have leaders or advisors who are not in touch with reality, Nigerians are going through or choose or choose to look the other way, what will you get? You'll get confusion and chaos like we have going on right now. And going on to Facebook, Ima Victor says there are things that need to be repeated until it's been understood. Dr. Majid should continue until his advice is heard and implemented. Okorie Stephen Obonaya says, I'm always interested to listen to Dr. Majid, but I don't know why all our talks and contributions don't seem to get to the government. Tewase Jeffrey says, do our leaders listen to you at all? Your passion to saving Nigeria is always superb. With your political and economic analysis, Nigeria will surely be liberated. And Samson and Nessie says, Dr. Majid, he's been saying the same thing since last year. Let us implement his ideas. And Usman Farouk says, thank you for always speaking truth to power. While Eddie Edu says, permit me to add that the root cause of our problems, our economic woes, is the age-long weaponization of poverty by our political leaders. You all will agree with me that those words by our vice president, amongst others, is only a lip service. I'm saying this because they are ever ready to dish out peanuts in the name of palliatives and distribute grains to vulnerable Nigerians as long as they are feeding fat on the deprivations of the masses.
Let's go on a quick break.
Get ready to take your taste buds on an adventure with Eat Right. Experience meals made with love.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.